We're going to be talking today about mobilizing communities. And as we think about our work in communities, there's a lot of different things that we're responsible for. But more than anything, we want to mobilize communities around marriage. And I want to talk about movements from three different angles. Because movements are about mobilizing people around a sense of shared purpose. I think we all know that. But more than anything, to get more specific, movements are about moving latent energy into motion, taking energy that's on the sidelines and moving it into the game. That's latent energy. And that's one of the highest ROI parts of our work, which is something that we all celebrate is impact. Now, I'm going to talk about this from yet another angle, and that is the job of a community leader is to move people to action. Same thing said three different ways. So how do you move people? Well, I think back into my business world days, especially when I was 23 years old in 1983, starting out in the real estate business. And a friend of mine says, Carl, you want to make things happen, you got to get on the horn. I don't know if y'all know what that means, but this is what it looked like. And this caused me a lot of stress because my challenge as a new guy in the real estate business was to make 1,000 cold calls a month. That's 50 a working day. That's a lot of cold calls. And so, as someone who's been hung up on many, many times, I can tell you that it's a wonderful moment. It is a wonderful moment. Maybe I appreciate this more than anything when you get a window of opportunity. And let me talk about this differently. There are catalytic moments when you're building relationships where really things really begin to happen. And there's catalytic moments that are a unique window opportunity to begin moving people to action. So a catalyst is something that causes activity between two or more persons. A catalytic moment from our perspective is the unique time when a church wants and needs your help. And we're encouraging our CMI teams to not overlook these really powerful catalytic moments. And here's some examples of catalytic moments we've seen. And the first item on this list is kind of sad, but it's a reality. We've gotten so many phone calls over the last 15 years, and it starts like this. It said, Carl, we've been so appreciative of the work that you've been doing for serving marriages. We have not been able to engage with you, but we got a big problem. We have a deacon couple or an elder couple that's getting a divorce. And this is what they say. We had no idea. Well, what I have found in these moments is this is when a church really begins to get serious about marriage. They ask themselves, how in the world did this happen? Why have we not been intentional about marriage? How is it possible that a leader couple in our church is getting a divorce and no one knew about it? We're not being intentional. This is a catalytic moment when a church puts things into high gear and they really want to make things happen for marriage. Or we get a call from a church. Hey, we're planning an event. Our registration is going really slow. Can you help us fill this event? That's an immediate need that churches have. There's all sorts of various immediate needs. A lot of times it's a passionate lay couple. We meet at an event and they say to us, we don't know why our church is not interested in starting a marriage ministry. Would you help us to do this? This is a catalytic moment. Or maybe a new church staff member who was part of a church that had a vibrant marriage ministry. And they come into this new church and like, where's the marriage ministry? And they step up and they say, they want to make this happen. And also, there's this thing called Valentine's Day. This is a significant catalytic moment. Why? Well, because every good husband is expected to do something meaningful, and a church who helps with Valentine's Day is a hero, right? So there's a unique moment that we have at Valentine's Day. But I want you to think about this differently. Valentine's Day is a cultural event where all across the country, millions of people are thinking about their most important and most meaningful relationship. Well, that is a really powerful catalytic moment. And so as we think about mobilizing people, this is what we want to contextualize this. There's two steps to mobilizing people. First is you've got to attract attention. And then when you have people's attention, you need to give them a call to action. This is the simplest way to communicate this. So how do we attract attention? Well, this is what we know from the social science. You can attract attention by authority, like here's the top 10 tips on so and so, or contrast. A church that went from never serving marriages to serving marriages in an amazing way, or curiosity, or the fear of missing out, scarcity, social proof. This is a tried and tested method. How about urgency? All right, so let's think about these social science elements of how to attract attention from our perspective. Well, let's look at the news. How does the news attract attention? Well, they use what's called a news peg. A news peg is a newsworthy event that justifies a story. So even the news media did, because news media is trying to call people to action. They want them to read their news, right? So this is something that's very well documented. So National Marriage Week is a newsworthy event that legitimizes your reaching out. And that's why we really want to emphasize the value of what we're talking about this month. Now, there's a very catalytic nature to National Marriage Week because there's an element of curiosity. There's an element of fear of missing out by saying, many churches are coming together, and that's what you all did in your community. Many churches are coming together. So there's a fear of missing out. But more than anything, there's a sense of urgency because there's one day a year that we're talking about where this happens. So National Marriage Week has a very catalytic nature to it. Now, this is um, what we're trying to communicate to churches is to say to churches, we know that there's a number of churches around the city who are using this as a special opportunity to serve couples. I want to communicate this in the way that you communicated this. This is what inspired us about your work. As you said, and I'm not sure if I'm quoting you exactly, you said there's a group of innovative churches around the city who are coming together for a citywide vow renewal. Okay, what are the elements of attracting attention? You guys used exclusivity. We're talking about innovative churches, right? You used a sense of urgency and fear of missing out. They're coming together. That's actually that's a time limited thing. And then vow renewal, that sparks curiosity, right? So I think this is why you guys were so successful in attracting an amazing effort during National Marriage Week. Now, this is something that Paul and Austin did. If you guys know Paul Kuhn, this guy gets things done. And this is what he did in January. He reached out to his churches and said, well, guess what? The nation's leading marriage and family researcher is coming to Austin. So what were the elements of that? Authority, the nation's leading researcher. Exclusivity, he's coming to Austin. Urgency and fear of missing out. If you don't show up, you're going to miss this guy. Curiosity, who is this guy? Scarcity, it's only happening once. Social proof, this guy is admired by his peers. You see why these statements can be so incredibly effective. Well, I want to celebrate what Paul did because some amazing things had happened in Paul when he sent this message out. And this is what he said. Paul told me, he said, the fact that Brad Wilcox was coming to Austin, he said, it gave me a legitimate and important reason to reach out. And here's a whole series of statements that Paul shared with me. And these are in no particular order. He said, I had reached out before, but now I had a national speaker. And it helped me deepen relationships. It helped deepen what were formerly shallow relationships. He said, what was interesting is we were working together to solve a problem. We were excited to be a part of something bigger. And this is interesting. He said, when you engage people in an activity, it gets them excited. And he had a church tell him, he said, well, we can't host this event, but we'll host the next one. You see how it created energy? But more than anything, I like this last sentence. He said, we went from being the Austin Marriage Initiative, being an idea, to becoming a coalition of people working together to serve marriages. And probably the most important thing Paul said to me this morning was, it was a turning point. This is the event. This is the leader training event that Paul did following the Brad Wilcox events, where he discovered a lot of new churches that were willing to come on board and be a part of the marriage initiative in Austin. And Paul downloaded to us, to Stephanie and I, this amazing list of the outcomes of what happened at this meeting. So this is when I think of Paul, I think of this statement. This is a funny statement, and it's been modified because I removed a curse word. It said, "Some people make things happen. Some people see things happen. Most people wonder what the heck just happened. And so Paul is a guy, and you are a team that make things happen. So we want to celebrate that with you. What we want to say is that Paul capitalized on a catalytic moment to grow the marriage movement in Austin. And this is what happened when we had our first really big, serious date night event in San Antonio in 2011, where we had 1,000 people come together in the room. We'd just been talking about the marriage initiative, but when this event happened, for the first time ever, people began to take us seriously. This is what was our outcome. It animated our relationships. It bonded our team. It gave credibility to the movement. Like, you guys can make an event happen. It deepened our trust with churches. It strengthened our faith. Why? Because a week before the event, we only had 300 registrations. We were talking about moving it to a smaller room, but the night of the event, 1,100 people show up. So it demonstrated God at work. And that was probably more important than anything to us. So here's what I want us to leave with is there's a watershed moment in every community initiative where an important event causes people to take you seriously. And I think that is the opportunity that we have in these moments to really begin making a difference.